Hi, all. Happy October almost. Oh my goodness, can you believe it? Feels like this fall is going quickly. It's my favorite season. I'm not one who moans about the rain. I love it. Don't know about you, but cold temperatures, bring it on. So, I hope you realize that for a lot of people, the Screw Tape Letters is hands down their favorite of C.S. Lewis's work. And he's doing so much. So, I hope that you've had time to read it and read it carefully, a little bit slowly, get the nuance, get the humor, and the depth of what he's doing. Our two TED Talks that I'm asking you to watch this week are pressing you a little bit to think about what might he have done if Lewis had written this just as an essay. Be wary of Satan. Be wary of evil things, right? And it just would have been a standard essay. I think sometimes of an essay with a little bit of finger wagging, like, don't do this, make sure you do this, I think this, I need you to believe me. And I want you to consider the depth that he can achieve when he writes these letters. Fascinating. So, both of the TED Talks are digging into that a little bit about the ability of fiction to potentially dig a little bit more deeply, to tap into our emotions, to draw us more into the story where we potentially relate to it more. It has a deeper impact. Now, not always, but I want you thinking about that. And Isabel Allende is the second TED Talk. If you have a minute, look her up on Google if you've not heard of her. I've read most of her fiction. She's phenomenal. She's written, I think 25 books about, and they're not small. These are big books. Most of them fiction, not all, but most of them, I'd say about 20 of them, are novels or short stories of some kind. She is the niece of the president of Chile back in the early 70s. Her uncle was overthrown by a political military coup, and that's when the dictator of Chile took over, Pinochet. So her family was forced to leave. And what she talks about is that because of that exile, and she now lives in the United States, she lives in California. Because of that exile, she was forced to really dig into who she is, and she is more comfortably herself because of the hardships that she's had to go through. It's just wonderful and fascinating at the same time. So, in her talk, you're going to encounter some humor, a little bit of raw humor, and she's certainly making a point, but she's also making a play for fiction, the power of fiction. That's what she's spent a lot of her life's work on. I hope you've also noticed the trajectory of this course. So, we started with what really is considered an autobiography of Lewis, so that you would get a sense of who he is by his lifespan. The next work, The Problem of Pain, is just one of many of his books of essays that encounter some of the more difficult questions of Christianity, so an apologetic piece. And now I'm asking you to dig into something that is fictional, but it's almost a mix. It is fiction, but it also is speaking pretty directly to the reader about how things should be or how we should think about things. And then looking ahead, we're going to move on next to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is his fiction that is geared for younger people, but certainly has resonance with adults as well. He spent a lot of his life mastering fiction and mastering ways to bring the biblical story and the gospel through fiction to people who might not otherwise encounter it. Now, I have met a lot of people who read the Narnia books as children or had them read to them and never realized how overtly Jesus and Satan and all different players are in those works. And in that way, they stayed with it. Sometimes when we say the word Jesus, the name Jesus, in circles of people who are not believers, for some people it's fine. But in my experience, for an awful lot of people, it can be off-putting, threatening in some way, where they just don't want to listen anymore because they don't want to be preached to, they don't want to hear about that. And C.S. Lewis was very aware of that. So he's a professor for many, many years, an English professor, and very studied in matters of theology. And he knew that certain words that we use will shut people down so that they can no longer hear what we say. And sometimes fiction is a gentler but deeper way to reach them. Jesus knew this as well. He used parables to bring across some of his greatest truths. And why? Because a parable is nuanced. It can be heard over time a little bit differently by different groups of people in different cultures and different generations, and the truth can still come through. So that the truth is more complex than just 1 plus 2 equals 3, period. That's it for all of eternity. Truth typically about humanity is far more complex than that. And that's what we get in a parable in the New Testament, for example, in a short story, in this series of letters that we're working through right now. The assignment that's coming up, that's due on Sunday night, is my favorite of all of our assignments, and maybe one of my favorites of all the courses that I currently teach at George Fox. So you get a choice. You don't have to jump in and do the letters if that sounds too daunting to you, but I want to encourage you to consider it. Seriously consider it. And I'm not going to dock you if you don't. There is a choice. You can do one or the other of the 2 suggested assignments on the assignment page. Consider the letters, though. And when you consider the letters, you have to thoroughly put yourself in the point of view, as C.S. Lewis does, of a demon who is trying to undermine you. So in order to do that, you have to know yourself awfully well and be humble about your weaknesses. It can be a very enriching experience to write this assignment and to write it honestly. I've had a lot of students say that they were pretty blown away, didn't realize what their result was going to be. And they learned a lot about themselves from the experience. And I've said before that over time, if I were to gather up, and we'll see how you guys do as well, if I were to gather up all of these response papers, number 6, it would be a phenomenal book to put out there. That this is a contemporary rewriting of C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters. So I hope you'll consider the creative option. If you do, just know that in terms of formatting, stick to APA, of course. I would use subheadings in APA format to designate the different letters because you'll have different pieces. If you have questions about how to do that, send me an email. Make sure, please, all of you, that you're reading my comments on your essays. I spend a lot of time combing through your essays and trying to give you good, helpful feedback so that by the end of our course, you're getting virtually 0 comments from me on formatting, really 0 by that point, and virtually 0 on mechanics, and that you and I can just go back and forth on your good content, because all of you are producing good content. So I want to make sure that you clean up the formatting, clean up the mechanics, so that your papers are earning the A's that they deserve. If you have questions, let me know. I've said before about the revision, so I'm going to trust you to go to the syllabus to look that up and make sure that you're getting the grade that you want to earn. Your discussion forum for this week is a video again. We had a little bit of a struggle with that 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. So make sure you know what you're going to use. I had asked you to let me know if that camera icon's a problem. That should work on, probably not on an iPad, but on any computer. You should be able to tap that and make a quick video. If you're not able to, then you can use anything you want to film the video, upload it to YouTube, make sure that your permissions are open to the public so that we can then see it and paste that in the discussion forum. In order to earn full credit, the instructions are all there. Your video has to be visible to all of us by the time that it's due, and then you have to get everything in on time, and then you'll earn 100% for it. I'm not critical about how you do your video or what you're saying. I'm just looking for you to give it your best shot. All right, again, happy October to you. Stay warm. God bless.